Hi guys, it's Miss Paige. I'm here to read chapter 2 and to go over some characters that are in the story. First off, I want to say I miss you guys so much. I wish we could be in the classroom, but I'm really glad I get to at least present and read to you still, do some read aloud activities. Before I start reading though, I would like you to copy these names down in your reading response journal. Please make sure to leave some spaces so we can describe each character and learn who they are. These are names we've heard so far, just reading chapter 1. So go ahead and pause the video and copy these names, but make sure only put 2 per page. So let's kind of review what happened in chapter 1. Miss Maddox read chapter 1 yesterday, or actually on Monday, and it talked about Anna Marie and Ellen were running home from school and they got stopped by some soldiers, and also Christy was with them. Based on what we know, we just know that they came home and they saw Mrs. Rosen and Miss Johannesson together. So we're going to go ahead and read chapter 2, and maybe we can fill in some of this information as we're reading. So chapter 2 says, "Who is the man who rides past?" "Tell me a story," begged Christy as she snuggled beside her sister in the big bed they shared. "Tell me a fairy tale." Anna Marie smiled and wrapped her arms around her little sister in the dark. All Danish children grew up familiar with fairy tales. Hans Christian Andersen, the most famous of the tale-tellers, had been Danish himself. "Do you want the one about the little mermaid?" That one had always been Anna Marie's own favorite. But Kirsty said no. "Tell the one that starts with a king and a queen, and they have a beautiful daughter." "All right. Once upon a time there was a king," Anna Marie began. "And a queen?" whispered Christy. "Don't forget the queen." "And a queen. They lived together in a wonderful palace, and..." "Was the palace named Annelborg?" Kirsty asked sleepily. "Shh! Don't keep interrupting. I'll never finish." "The story. No, it wasn't Annelborg. It was a pretend place." Anne-Marie talked on, making up a story of a king and a queen and their beautiful daughter, Princess Kirsten. She sprinkled her tale with formal balls, fabulous gold-trimmed gowns, and feast of pink frosted cupcakes, until Christy's deep eyes, even breathing, told her that her sister was sound asleep. She stopped, waited for a moment, half expecting Christy to murmur, "Then what happened?" But Christy was still. Anna Marie's thoughts turned to the real king, Christian X, and the real palace, Amalienborg, where he lived, in the center of Copenhagen. How did the people of Denmark love King Christian? He was not like a fairy tale king who seemed to stand on balconies giving orders to subjects, or who sat on golden thrones demanding to be entertained and looking for a suitable husband for their daughters. King Christian was a real human being, a man with a serious, kind face. She'd seen him often when she was younger. Each morning he'd come from the palace on his horse Jubilee and had ridden through the streets of Copenhagen, greeting his people. Sometimes, when Anna Marie was a little girl, her older sister Lise had taken her to stand on the sidewalk so that she could wave to King Christian. There's another character. I'm going to add her to the list. It says Lise. It's Lise. And it says that she's Anna Marie's sister. So I added her to our list. Lise had taken her to stand on the sidewalk so she could wave to King Christian. Sometimes he had waved back to the two of them and smiled. "Now you are special forever," Lise had once told her, "because you've been greeted by a king." Anna Marie turned her head on the pillow and stared through the partly open curtains of the window and to the dim September night. Thinking of Lise, her solemn, lovely sister, had always made her sad. So she turned her thoughts again to the king, who was still alive, as Lise was not. She remembered a story that Papa had told her shortly after the war began, shortly after Denmark had surrendered and the soldiers had moved in overnight to take their places on the corners. One evening, Papa had told her earlier, he was on an errand near his office, standing on the corner waiting to cross the street, when King Christian came on his morning ride. One of the German soldiers had turned suddenly and asked a question of a teenage boy nearby. "Who is that man who rides past here every morning on his horse?" the German soldier had asked. Papa said he smiled to himself, amused that the German soldier did not know. He listened while the boy answered. "He is our king," the boy told the soldier. "He is the King of Denmark." "Where is his bodyguard?" the soldier had asked. And do you know what the boy said? Papa had asked Anna Marie. She was sitting on his lap. She was little then, only 7. She shook her head, waiting to hear the answer. The boy looked right at that soldier and he said, all of Denmark is his bodyguard. Anna Marie had shivered. It sounded like a very brave answer. Is it true, Papa, she asked, what the boy said? Papa thought for a moment. He always considered questions very carefully before he answered them. Yes, he said at last, it is true. Any Danish citizen would die for King Christian to protect him. You too, Papa? Yes. And Mama? Mama too. Anna Marie shivered again. Then I would too, Papa, if I had to. They sat silently for a moment. From across the room, Mama watched them, Anna Marie and Papa, and she smiled. Mama had been crocheting that evening 3 years ago, the lacy edging of a pillowcase, part of Lise's trousseau. So it says Anna Marie was 7 when she asked her dad about the king, and this was 3 years ago, so that would mean that Anna Marie is around your guys' age. She's 10 years old. So we're going to write that. So Anna Marie is 10 years old. And just from our reading, we can tell that she said that King Christian X is still alive, but Lise is not. So that might be a detail we need to know. So maybe we can put, it's Anna Marie's sister who passed away. So she must be her older sister. Based on what we've read that Anna Marie is telling Kirsty a story, or Christy, it's her little sister. So, I'm going to keep reading. Her fingers moved rapidly, turning the thin white thread into an intricate, narrow border. Lise was a grown-up girl of 18 then, about to be married to Peter Nilsson. Oh, we have his name here. So that is Lise's fiance. We won't have to write this much every day. This is just to kind of keep our who the people are straight in our mind, because there's a lot of names coming up. So, Lise and Peter were to be married, and it did mention Peter in the first chapter. When Lise and Peter married, Mama said, Anna Marie and Kirsty would have a brother for the very first time. Papa, Anna Marie had said, finally into the silence, sometimes I wonder why the king wasn't able to protect us. Why didn't he fight the Nazis so they wouldn't come into Denmark with their guns? Papa sighed. We're such a tiny country, he said, and they're such an enormous enemy. Our king was wise. He knew how few soldiers Denmark had. He knew that many, many Danish people would die if we fought. In Norway they fought, Anna Marie pointed out. Papa nodded. They fought very fiercely in Norway. They had those huge mountains for the Norwegian soldiers to hide in. Even so, Norway was crushed. In her mind, Anna Marie had pictured Norway as she remembered it from the map at school, up above Denmark. Norway was pink on the school map. She imagined the pink strip of Norway crushed by a fist. Are those German soldiers in Norway now, the same as here? Yes, Papa said. And Holland too? Mama added from across the room. And in Belgium and France. But not in Sweden, Anna Marie announced, proud that she knew so much about the world. Sweden was blue on the map, and she had seen Sweden, even though she'd never been there. Standing behind Uncle Henrik's house, north of Copenhagen, she had looked across the water, the part of the North Sea that was called the Kattegat, to the land on the other side. That is Sweden you're seeing, Uncle Henrik had told her. You are looking across to another country. That's true, Papa had said. Sweden is still free. So we need to add Uncle Henrik. If you have room, you can turn the page if you need to. U-N-C-L-E, then Henrik, capital H, it's a proper noun. E-N-R-I-K. So, they're talking a lot about different countries. And the country that they live in is called Denmark. You don't have to write this down, but where they live is Denmark. And if you have time after the video, if you could look online for a map and you can see where Denmark and Sweden are. That way you can kind of visualize, because we're going to kind of need to know where they are. Denmark and Sweden on a map. And now, 3 years later, it was still true, but much else has changed. King Christian was getting old, and he had been badly injured last year in a fall from his horse, faithful old Jubilee, who had carried him around Copenhagen so many mornings. For days they thought he would die, and all of Denmark had mourned. But he hadn't. King Christian X was still alive. It was Lise who was not. It was her tall, beautiful sister who had died in an accident 2 weeks before her wedding. In the blue carved trunk in the corner of the bedroom, Anna Marie could see its shape even in the dark. Where folded Lisa's pillowcase with her crocheted edges, her wedding dress with its hand-embroidered neckline, unworn, and the yellow dress that she had worn and danced in, with its full skirt flying at the party celebrating her engagement to Peter. Mama and Papa had never spoke with Lise. They never opened the trunk, but Anna Marie did. From time to time, she was alone in the apartment. Alone, she would go through Lisa's things gently, remembering her quiet, soft-spoken sister who had looked forward to marriage and children of her own. Red-headed Peter, her sister's fiancé, had not married anyone in the years since Lisa's death. He had changed a great deal. Once, he had been like a fun-loving older brother to Anna Marie and Kirsty, teasing and tickling, always a source of foolishness and pranks. Now, he stopped by the apartment often, and his greeting to the girls were warm and smiling, but he was usually in a hurry, talking quickly to Mama and Papa about things Anna Marie didn't understand. He no longer sang the nonsense songs he had once made Anna Marie and Kirsty shriek with laughter. He never lingered anymore. Papa had changed too. He seemed much older and very tired, defeated. The whole world had changed. Only the fairy tales remained the same. And they lived happily ever after, Anna Marie recited, whispering into the dark, completing the tale for her sister, who slept beside her, one thumb in her mouth. So that is the end of chapter 2. If you heard anything about these characters, you could add them in. It did talk about Peter. It said it was Lisa's fiance, and he had red hair. And it said at one time he used to joke around with Anna Marie and Kirsty, but it said he didn't really anymore. So maybe I could put used to joke and play. So while we were reading, if you can think of anything to add to the characters, please do so in your journal. We will continue to add each day as we find out more about them. The one last thing before we leave is the mood kind of changed through the story. It talked about 3 years ago in the flashback versus now. And my question for you today is, what do you think the mood is currently in the story? And I did give you some sentence stems if you would like to use them. I think the mood is, and then you can tell what you think the mood is in the story. And then your evidence. What evidence do you have to support your thinking that the mood is either sad or happy, joyful? They did use some words in there to describe how Papa was feeling, how Peter was feeling. So if you would